96.7 KCAL rocks. It's time to talk some sports. And Mr. Pep, we got to check in with you. The Dodger fan licking his wounds this morning, bud.
It's over, man. Listen, it was fun while it lasted. I don't know if they were supposed to be this good this year and win over 100 games and win the National League West and all those things. But with all that said, the bar is very, very high for the Dodgers, and they were supposed to at least get to the National League Championship Series. I think we all assumed it was going to be the Braves against the Dodgers battling for a spot in the World Series. Patrick, that looks like it might not happen at all. The Arizona Diamondbacks completed the 3-game sweep of the Dodgers last night. The Braves are down 2-1 against a red-hot fighting Phil's team. But going back to the Dodgers, man, yeah, they just got dominated by the D-backs.
They did, and I mean, we had the epic meltdown of Clayton Kershaw in Game 1, where they had to pull him out in the first inning. And then tell me how much of a flashback it was to watch the Arizona Diamondbacks jump in that pool.
Yeah.
It was like, ooh, man, that really brought back the memory. Oh, yeah, I remember another splashdown in that pool. God, life is about balance. Even if it took 5 or 6 years to come back, to watch them jump in the pool, which is their pool.
Yeah.
They have a right to jump in that pool, but it just was almost nostalgic, dare I say, to watch them jump in. It's like, oh, ouch, that's extra burn, right?
Yeah, the Dodgers know the feeling. They did it, but you're right. That is in the Arizona Stadium. That is their house. And, what's crazy, Patrick, is, I think we talked about it earlier this week that at the All-Star break, the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers were neck and neck. I mean, they were fighting for first place in the National League West, and then the Dodgers got red hot, and they just pulled away. I think they won the National League West by, 16 games? Like, they pulled away from everybody in the division. And we talked about the whole time, like, hey, the Dodgers are peaking at the right time. Like, they are not trending down yet. They keep going up and up and up. Well, we finally found out when they were going to start trending down, and that was the playoffs, and that was the wrong time. And unfortunately for the Dodgers, their star players, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, they were ice cold in the playoffs. And you need your big-time players to come up in big games. That's why they're superstars. We're seeing Bryce Harper doing it right now for the Phillies, just having an insane, postseason run. So they just needed them to step up. Clayton Kershaw obviously didn't step up in Game 1. It was just the perfect storm. And in Arizona, on paper, they don't have as much talent as the Dodgers, but baseball's a weird game, and they're the hottest team right now in the National League, maybe outside of Philly. But yeah, kudos to the Arizona Diamondbacks. But man, the Dodgers, another season of what could have been.
A lot of talk about the 5-game series, and kind of a lot of people, of course, wishing that we had a few more games to go. But if it's something that we've learned from Pep, it is not the best team. It is the hottest team. So if we go by the rule of Pep, that should be the new segment we have. Rule of Pep is it's the Phillies and the Rangers that are going to be in the World Series because they are hot right now.
And you know what's weird, Patrick, is, and I do, the rule of Pep is a real thing. But I will say, I feel like in the NFL and the NBA, the better teams usually find a way to win. But in baseball and the Stanley Cup playoffs in hockey, you see the lower-seeded teams making runs to the championship. Arizona's the number 6 team. They're the last, the lowest-seeded team in the National League, but they're in the National League Championship Series. So the number 1 team and the number 2 team, the Dodgers and the Braves, the Dodgers are already out. The Braves, they're on the brink of elimination. They're 1 game away from being bounced out. In fact, they might be bounced out today. Game 4 is against the Phillies today. So it doesn't matter where you're seated in baseball. If you're hot, you're hot.
And I think it's like you said, even a 7-game series may have not even mattered. I think there's just that one flashback of the one time when the Red Sox were able to come back from 3-0 on the Yankees. So we do have the thing where we know it's possible, highly unlikely. But we like to know that there's that possibility. But I do have the feeling that the rule of Pep also says it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, you're telling me there's a chance. Yeah, there's a chance. I mean, we also might get hit by an asteroid or something. But there's a chance, but there's not a good chance. Because even in the American League, look at the Baltimore Orioles were the number 1 seeded team. They had the best record in the American League all throughout the regular season, and they get swept by the Texas Rangers. So it's just a hard thing to predict. Just because you're a top-seeded team, just because you were great during the regular season, it really means nothing in the baseball playoffs.
the bats go cold, and that's what happened.
Unless you're the Houston Astros. They took care of the Twins in 4 games. They're going to their 7th consecutive American League Championship Series, the reigning champs. I know, man, it's hard to swallow, but the Astros are back. They're still good.
The only bright spot is Dusty Baker is an IE dude.
Yes.
That's the only thing that I can cling to.
Yes, and it's hard not to be a fan of Dusty Baker.
Yeah.
He's a good dude, good baseball guy, and he kept that thing going in Houston, so congratulations to them. So we'll see what the Phillies do tonight in Game 4 against the Braves. The rest of the baseball series have already been decided, at least in the divisional round.
Yeah.
Patrick, let's talk some NFL. I do want to talk about the Thursday night game tonight. It might be a clunker. It's Broncos versus Chiefs. But the real story is, I know, Sean Payton and your boy quarterback Russell Wilson. There's rumors now that Sean Payton's just going to let it fall apart because he wants to do the ultimate teardown. He wants to let everything fall apart, get rid of a bunch of guys, and build it from the bottom up, from scratch, the way he wants to do it. Because obviously what he has right now is not the recipe for a winning team.
Right, and I mean, a huge part of it, I feel, is actually the defense and not Russell Wilson as much. However, I think you're correct. And we talked about this earlier when he's acting so outlandish and getting blown out 70 to what, whatever, get beat, they dropped a 70 burger on you.
Yeah.
We heard that rumor that he was doing this on purpose so he could break it all down.
And you know what, too? Like, listen, Russell Wilson, I think he's still in his prime. I don't think he's over the hill yet. But there is a lot of great quarterbacks coming up in this NFL draft. So if the Broncos really do tank and they get one of those, top 2, 3 picks, they're probably going to get a really good quarterback. Not saying they're ready to move on from Russell Wilson, but if they are ready to move on from Russell Wilson, they could probably get a really good quarterback in the draft and be part of the franchise, the rebuild, right, going forward. So, I don't know, it'll be interesting. I mean, what if they go out and beat the Chiefs tonight, who haven't actually looked that great this year, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, maybe they will try to put it together this year, but they haven't looked like it.
It just makes Pete Carroll and all the USC fans know this, look like a genius. And he had to take a lot of heat that it was all his fault, that it wasn't completely working out. We're finding out that obviously he still knows how to coach and maybe made the best trade in history by getting rid of Russell Wilson and getting all that stuff back for his Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, he knew something we didn't know, right? Because we still thought, man, Russell Wilson, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And maybe he still is, but the Broncos have just not been good. He has not been putting up very good stats for Denver. So if the tank job is in full effect, well, I guess we'll find out tonight when they play Kansas City, because the Chiefs should walk right past the Broncos. But I don't know. Maybe guys are fighting for their jobs, and the players, and they're going to come out swinging, and then maybe we'll see a different team. But as of right now, like, don't be surprised if Denver just tanks it this year, and Sean Payton, the new head coach, gets to build the team the way he wants to build it with his guys from scratch.
Yeah.
So the teardown might be on. This weekend, we got the 49ers versus the Browns. The 49ers are still undefeated. Also in the NFC West, the Rams are at home for the Cardinals. And speaking of tank jobs like the Broncos, we thought Arizona was going to try and tank, and then they go out and they beat the Dallas Cowboys a couple weeks ago, and that was a significant win. So a lot of these teams, like, they might want to tank in terms of trying to rebuild and get a high pick in the NFL draft. But remember, the players are fighting for paychecks and jobs and positions and all these things. They're not going to back down. They're going to be playing their butts off out there. And I think Arizona, like the Denver Broncos, is another case of, well, they shouldn't be very good. They're probably going to lose a lot of games. But listen, the guys out there have a lot of pride who are playing football, and they're going to go out there and give it their best shot.
They're competitors, and it's hard for them just to lay down. They can't do it. Every fiber in their being has been designed to be the opposite of that, and they can't help it. And like you said, they're fighting for their paychecks too.
Yeah.
They don't want to lower their pay just to help out the team. They need to make as much money as possible, especially in the brutal sport of the NFL.
Yep, totally agree, Patrick, 100%. And finally, real quick, in college football, big weekend for our Pac-12 teams. USC, who is number 10 right now in the rankings, they're going to play at Notre Dame, which is obviously a big rivalry game with the Irish. But back home in the Pac-12, we've got Oregon against Washington, Huge game there. And we also got UCLA taking on Oregon State, both of them ranked in the top 25. So it's a big weekend for the Pac-12 and in terms of what the standings are going to look like after Saturday.
Right. We'll have to see how it shakes out, but I'm with you. The big game is we need to see who's better, Oregon or Washington. I went to Washington State, so trust me, the last thing I want to say is it's Washington, but I kind of feel like Washington is special, and we get to find that out this weekend.
Yeah, whoever wins this game, assuming USC is like the top dog in the Pac-12, whoever wins Oregon versus Washington, you would feel like is the number one contender, right, to take on USC for the Pac-12 championship. I know we still got a lot of football, but I feel like that game is significant for that reason.
And maybe able to take advantage of USC's defense. Pep has been talking all year and even before the season. Rule of Pep, it's back.
It's back.
That defense is a weakness. Look out.
If you play with fire for too long, you're going to get burned. At some point, it will not be in USC's favor, scoring all those points, but giving up a lot of points.
Remember the rule of Pep, man. That's what we learned today. We get to catch up on Monday after the huge weekend of sports. Pep, tell me how to get your stuff.
Can't wait. It's on Inland Sports right now. You can find Inland Sports on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. You can also find us on the Inland Sports YouTube channel. That's Inland Sports.
Thanks, Pep. Boom.